Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
All right, so today we're tackling something that's, well, maybe not the most glamorous topic, but it's super important. Data backup.
Can't argue with that. Data loss is a nightmare no one wants to deal with.
Exactly. And we're going deep on a specific solution today, HPE StoreOnce.
Okay, interesting choice.
Yeah, and we're going to uncover some limitations that might surprise you. Things you really need to know if you're considering HPE StoreOnce for your data protection.
Sounds like we're about to get into the nitty-gritty.
We are. So let's start with the basics. What's the deal with HPE StoreOnce? How does it work, especially when it comes to integrating with Veeam for backups?
All right, so HPE StoreOnce is pretty popular. You see it a lot, especially alongside Veeam.
Right, makes sense.
And they usually use what's called integration mode, which, well, it relies on exclusive file locking.
Exclusive file locking. Okay, that sounds a little technical.
Yeah, it can be, but basically, think of it this way. When a job is running, let's say a backup, it completely locks that file. No one else can touch it.
So let me see if I understand this. Let's say a backup job is going, everything's humming along, and suddenly, boom, disaster strikes.
Uh-oh.
Right. And I need to restore a vital file, like ASAP. But that backup is still running. Am I stuck?
You got it. You're absolutely stuck waiting until that backup finishes.
No way. So I can't even access my own data.
Not in that scenario, no. And here's the kicker. On HPE StoreOnce, backup jobs, they get top priority.
Really? Above everything else?
Everything. Backup copies, restores, you name it.
Wow. Okay, so if I need to restore data, but a backup is running, HPE StoreOnce is actually slowing me down.
Yeah, it can be a real bottleneck in a time-sensitive situation.
That's a big limitation, especially when, every second counts in a data recovery situation.
You're not wrong about that. And speaking of limitations, another one to keep in mind is with backup chains.
Backup chains, right. What's the deal there?
Well, on HPE StoreOnce, you're limited to 7 restore points.
Only 7. That doesn't seem like a lot.
It's not ideal, that's for sure. And this actually impacts how you schedule your backups. You're basically stuck with 1 incremental backup per day, max, and you have to have at least 1 full backup, either active or synthetic, every week.
So it really restricts how often you can create those restore points
Right.
and how far back you can go for recovery.
Yeah, it takes away a lot of your flexibility.
Okay, so we're seeing some restrictions here.
Yeah.
What about data efficiency? Does HPE StoreOnce do things like defragmentation or compaction?
They do have deduplication within object stores, which is good for saving space, but, well,
There's a but.
yeah. HPE StoreOnce doesn't allow for defragmentation or compaction of full backup files.
And what does that mean in the long run?
Well, over time, you end up with fragmented storage. Imagine a messy closet.
Okay, I can picture that.
Right, you might have the same amount of clothes, but it's harder to find what you need, and you might even need a bigger closet anyway. It's kind of like that with fragmented storage. It impacts performance and could end up costing you more.
That makes sense. It's like hidden costs just from inefficient storage. Are there any other features that HPE StoreOnce is missing that might catch people off guard?
A few, actually. For one, they don't have reverse incremental backups. Those can be a real time saver when you're doing restores.
Interesting.
And if you're working with Hyper-V VMs that were started with instant VM recovery, well, you can't do quick migrations from HPE StoreOnce backups.
So another limitation there.
Right. And there's more. You can't use it as a cloud repository. You can't directly back up Veeam endpoints.
Wow. Okay. Starting to see a theme here.
Yeah, even something as basic as file copy jobs can't use HPE StoreOnce as a source or a target.
So it's not as versatile as you might think at first glance.
Not really. And all these limitations, they can add up. You might think you're covered, and then bam, you need to do something, and you can't because HPE StoreOnce just doesn't support it.
Yeah, that would be a terrible situation to be in, especially when you're dealing with something as critical as data recovery.
Exactly. So it's really crucial to be aware of these constraints before you commit to any solution.
All right, so we've talked about some of the downsides. Let's shift gears and talk about performance for a bit.
Sure.
HPE StoreOnce uses 4 millibat data blocks and per VM backup files. What's the deal with that?
Okay, so the 4 millibat block size, that's generally a good thing. Basically, it means HPE StoreOnce processes data in bigger chunks. Think of it like, instead of carrying groceries 1 bag at a time, you're using a shopping cart.
Makes things more efficient.
Exactly. It means smaller metadata tables, which puts less strain on your resources, and it speeds up your backups.
Okay, so that's a plus. But you mentioned earlier that having multiple backup repositories on a single HPE StoreOnce appliance can cause problems.
Right, that's something to be very careful about. If you have multiple repositories, you need to make sure all the files from a single backup chain stay within one extent. It's a way of keeping things organized for better performance.
So if you don't manage this correctly, it can really mess things up.
Definitely. You could end up with some serious performance bottlenecks, and no one wants that.
Definitely not. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. It's clear that HPE StoreOnce, while a common choice, has its share of limitations. For anyone listening who's thinking, maybe this isn't the best fit for me, what else is out there? What would you say to them?
Do your research. Don't settle. There are other solutions that directly address these limitations. For example, you could look into StoneFly DR365V. They offer some great features that HPE StoreOnce doesn't have, like immutable backups and air gapping.
So it's really about finding a solution that actually meets your specific needs and doesn't box you in.
Absolutely. You want a solution that gives you power and flexibility, not headaches.
Great point. Well, this has been eye-opening for sure. I think the big takeaway here is that you really need to do your homework when it comes to backup solutions. Don't just assume everything will work perfectly. Look under the hood, understand the limitations, and explore your options. For anyone interested in alternatives like StoneFly DR365V, you can check them out at www.stonefly.com or reach out to them directly at sales@stonefly.com. They can help you find the perfect fit for your data protection needs. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
See you then.